Do you remember seeing that mood board, though? Whacking Yoshihara, our makeup artist. And I said, what are you going to show Jamie and Katrina? She said, I'm going to show Jamie about 20 pictures of Marlon Brando. I'm going to show Katrina 20 pictures of Brigitte. You remember seeing that? It was like...
I remember seeing it. It was there every day.
To cleanse the community a wee bit. You wouldn't want to be the odd man out in the street. Touch my family and I'll kill you.
As we all know, 18 months or so ago, we all went into this very unsettling lockdown that was so difficult for everyone. It seemed to bring to the surface something that I'd been thinking about ever since the events of this story happened about 50 years ago, where effectively I began to realize we went into our own lockdown. A lockdown that meant from a very stable, happy, settled life where with one working class family in one street, in one part of town, your neighborhood, you knew where you were, you know how you belonged, you knew your relationship to the world, and in a single day, everything, literally from the ground underneath your feet, was ripped up, turned upside down, and all the uncertainty that followed that ignited, I think, when our own experience of the lockdown kicked in. And so the story of this 9-year-old boy who tries to navigate his way with his family through this catastrophic period of change is really what came out. And some of it is heartbreaking and some of it, I think, is quite heartwarming.
I left Belfast when I was 20 years ago when I was 19. And I think about it all the time. I think of home all the time. I think of family still there. So as a result of that initial lockdown, I was thinking about home so much. I was also writing a script about home, which, again, wouldn't have happened if it wasn't lockdown. So my head was very much in that part of the world. And then a script comes through called Belfast. And, with a note that Ken wanted to talk to me about it. So it was kind of like this beautiful package that was so timely in terms of where my head was at anyway, and would be timely no matter what was happening with me, because, it's a story of the town that I was born, bred and buttered.
A moment where you realized how precious everything was because freedoms had been necessarily taken away from us. So the freedom that's expressed by the family at the beginning of the film, I think, was something that all of us felt it would be beautiful to return to. And we all had memories evoked of, what now seem like idylls when the doors are closed and it's just not possible to travel in the same way or see people or touch people, hug people, all those apparently silly things that become quite profound. This thing Jamie and I have talked about, particularly for the Irish, the pull of home, even if half the nation travels away from it as a matter of course. The pull of home and the certainty of home is clear. And then we obviously needed at the centre of it a little boy who, was from there and who could be as open and as present and as alive to it all, so that you saw the story unfolding through his eyes. I mean, within about 5 minutes on any given day, that's where I absolutely felt I was, back in 1969 and back in a certain part of Belfast where I'm reminded of New York a bit, where, when I've worked there, that a single street constitutes a neighborhood. Because if everybody knows each other and there's a few shops either end and all the rest of it, essentially that's your little world. And if you're 9 years old, that really is your little world.
I said this to Ken, I think, possibly the first time we spoke about it, is that I felt that I knew him. I felt I knew Pi. I know men like that. My father is a man like that. His father before him was a man like that. I think even before the conflict began, there's something about people in Belfast sort of been up against it a wee bit. It's never been a particularly easy place to live. There's since 1920, basically, there's been a certain divide there that's caused friction. That really resonated with me, the idea of I don't even, it's hard to even think of if my family was now put in that situation where overnight everything changed and there was danger outside that door where there used to be peace. And sanctuary outside the door suddenly overnight becomes something totally different. And I feel as a father now I can recognize the moves that I would make to ensure the safety of my family, So I think that in itself, just at the very core of it, like this guy trying to make right for his family, just resonated with me, you know. And then there's a, you know, I will my whole career try to, given the opportunity, tell stories from that part of the world, because it's important to me, and it's important that people know and people understand what the reality of people from that part of the world is.
We looked at some of the great photographers, Cartier-Bresson, who would find this thing they called the court moment, you know, really just trying to find some essential piece of life that black and white leads you to. It's somehow, bizarrely, we don't see the world that way, but somehow it has an increased authenticity somehow. It's a real paradox. If literally the paving stones beneath your feet have been ripped up, so the world is completely out of kilter, it seemed to me that movies and the way great artists saw the world was a great thing to try and bring back into your own backyard. And if in the safe space of the street that we had, you had only the space that you had, that could still be your forts and your palaces and your castles and your Wild West streets and everything. And so that delight, that sort of explosive firework of imagination that can be a young person at that age, that went right into the cinematography.